All good.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our pre-match press conference to preview our game against Wolves, and we'll start off with Vinny at Sky.
Frank, good to see you. First of all, what update can you give us on contract talks for Anthony Gordon, Alex Iwobi and Jordan Pickford? How close to agreement with any of them are you?
Close. That's the update for you. All good.
What more can you say? I mean, can you expand on it at all?
No, we're just, we've got hopefully a situation where we want the players to stay and they want to stay here. It's always been the feeling, so we're very close.
Dominic Calvert-Lewin, how likely will he to be involved against Wolves? And also Andros Townsend, how close to a return is he at the moment?
Yeah, Dominic, going to be tight Wolves. He's going to be training over the next couple of days, trying to push him a bit for match fitness. The injury feels good, which is the best news. The last thing I want to do is go too soon with him for match fitness. So that's the question mark over Wolves with Dominic. And we've got a lot of games coming up, so that's we have to be clear. And with Andros, he had a bit of a setback, so he's not going to be ready for these next batch of games.
Apart from that, take it no new injury concerns within the squad?
No.
Just looking at the potential transfer window coming up, just wondering, Connor Cody, could his move become permanent in that window? Decore's been linked with Fulham and Forest. Could he move on? And also, what scope is there for you to bring in players? Notably, obviously, we look at it and say you would maybe like to bring in a forward option.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about players leaving off the back of newspaper reports. I think that's just a bit lightweight, So we've got our squad. We're working towards Wolves. Connor has been brilliant since he's been here in every possible way. So, I and we would love to make that permanent at some point. But that's not happening right now. But we'll keep looking at that one. And then the January window, yeah, I think it's we want to help the squad. We want to have more options in forward areas. If the right players become available in those areas, then we have to try and improve, because I think particularly where we've had Dominic injured a big part of the season, I think it's been an area where we know we want more. But we have to be smart. Our situation is clear. Some other clubs are making moves in their own ways. We have to be also smart about how we do it. And more than that, concentrate on what we have in the building, the players that we have, how much we're prepared to fight and play well and improve every day. And that's my main concern. But yes, for sure, when the window opens, we'll be looking to improve where we can.
Obviously, we know Connor can't play against his parent club. Easy for me to say. But I just wonder how Connor is, how Jordan is after the World Cup, how ready they are physically and mentally to play, and just how beneficial was the break for yourself, for the players who didn't go to the World Cup?
Well, Jordan and Connor are great because they're low maintenance, and they would have it would have hurt to leave the tournament. I think the whole nation did, because we felt we were going well, and they're in the bubble. I know what it's like. There's not much of a worse feeling in that moment. Maybe the beauty of this tournament being in the winter is that they come straight back in. The Premier League is a beautiful thing as well. They come back to their clubs. They know how high we regard them in their own ways, and obviously Connor can't play this game, but they've come back with really good attitude. The break for me has been a good one. I've personally enjoyed it, and that's when I speak for myself. Hopefully I speak for the players in terms of we went to Australia, we had a good trip, we won a couple of games, we saw our fan base out there. We then had a break from training, which was really good for everyone, and then we've been working hard on things that we probably we know we can improve on generally, and particularly off the way we finished in the 2 games against Bournemouth. Before that, I think we were making really good strides in a lot of ways. But people's minds can obviously get drawn to those games, but we have to think bigger than that and just keep working.
When you're preparing to face Wolves, what are you looking at, particularly with a new manager in charge and not an awful lot of information to go on as to how they're going to set up against you?
So some basics of probably attributes that Wolves have anyway. Good players, very good players through their team. So we'll look at all of those parts, and then the manager, how he's worked before. I've gone up against him, Chelsea and Seville before. Very, very good manager. Had a lot of respect for his team and the way they set up then. But good managers, and I know just as a manager, that when you come into a different group of players, doesn't mean that you always play the same system, the same way as maybe you play somewhere else, because there'll always be compromises and changes. And so that's probably a little bit of a challenge for us. But if that helps us maybe focus on ourselves a little bit more, then that's not the worst thing.
Frank, just away from the game, obviously sad news today about George Cohen. I just wanted to get your thoughts, because I'd imagine you'd come across him quite a bit in the London football scene.
I actually didn't, but I'm very aware of him, and I know his fantastic career as one of the men that won the World Cup, his career at Fulham. I have such high regard. I grew up on stories of, as a young West Ham fan, of the greats, Bobby Moore, Jeff Hurst, Martin Peters. So I'm always drawn to that group of players, and it's always more than a shame when we lose one of those players. And every player I met out of that generation, of that squad, were gentlemen and very humble about their achievements, and the way how fast the modern days going, it's really makes it even more sad to lose players of that and people of that sort of size, personality-wise.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vinny. We'll go to Stuart at Premier League Productions.
Hi, Frank.
Hi.
I think it's going to be 45 days since you last played. It's such a strange situation. What challenges does that prove to you as a coach? And can you see it as a new start, as a fresh sheet of paper?
There's been certain challenges in terms of scheduling and the workload, and it's staggered slightly for different players. But I don't think the worst. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think freshness sometimes of mind and having a break is a good thing. We forever talk about how busy our schedule is, and then when something comes that breaks the schedule, maybe you can use it in a positive way, in a sense. And so I think we've done that. So I think there've been challenges, but I hope to see a team that runs out with a freshness about them and an energy and a fitness as a basic point. And then as a fresh start, I don't think we need a fresh start necessarily. A nice break, some freshness in us. But we know what all the targets are. We know the games that are ahead of us. Same as what we did before the break. We want to win them.
How important is the Goodison factor going to be, not just on Boxing Day, but for the rest of the season? I think only United and Newcastle have conceded fewer goals at home. So how important is Goodison going to be?
Well, it always has been and always will be, particularly for sure in my time here. We've had some incredible results at Goodison, and that's been because of a joining of player performance and fans joining in and creating this atmosphere that Goodison's had for through history, basically. So it's a big deal for us, and it gives us strength, it gives us confidence. And Boxing Day is always a tough game because of the time of year it is, and the onus will be on us, myself and the players, to inject the energy and engage the crowd, as always. And if we can do that, then it's always a big strength of ours.
I mean, you've been involved in Boxing Day football, festive football for pretty much your whole life, I guess. Is it different? Is the atmosphere slightly different?
Yeah, it can be. It can be. I won't speak for all the games, but it can be. We're all humans. I think if you spend a day, sometimes eating a lot, maybe having some drinks with your family, like those things, I think naturally it can bring something about it. And this is everywhere. This is across the board. But it's also, I think, a great tradition and game in our calendar that not many teams around the world do. Or leagues around the world do. So I'm not talking it down, as I say. If it's a challenge for us to start the game well or to inject energy into it and intensity, then that's not a problem.
Thanks, Stuart. We'll go to Mike at Radio Merseyside.
Hi, Frank. Because of the injury to Dominic and his problems, Neil Maupay has bore the brunt of being the focal point for much of Everton's front play. Has the period in Australia and what you've had since given you a period of greater adaptation, if you like, to bring the best out of him? Because quite often it seems in matches he gets the same sort of service that Dominic gets, and they're very different players.
Yeah, I'm not sure that last point is exact, but I think we could definitely have appreciated the time to work with the different style that Neil has in the team. We can't hit longer balls into Neil as we can to Dom, and be able to change up that variety of the game, but we can use Neil to different strengths that he has. We've worked more on the team, to be fair, as a group, because I think off the back of Bournemouth, we were 50% down at least as a team in terms of our performance, and that can happen. I think all good teams, and we're trying to become a better team from where we were, strive for consistency. So when you look at Crystal Palace game at home and you look at Bournemouth, they look very different, and that's the work. Absolutely, not just for Neil, but for the whole team. So, and we also have to understand that when you lose a striker of Dominic's abilities and quality for a team like us, it's a huge deal. You've only got to look at prolific number 9s through this league and what they do to their teams. That they make or break you at different times. So we have to understand that as well and work around it to try and do as well as we can.
I noticed some comments from Anthony Gordon. I think it was after the first game in Australia, where he was talking about that he really enjoyed the game, the performance. He felt it was a lot more like the best that he can do. Obviously, the levels are different, but he was making the point he didn't think he'd been as near as the mark as he should have done in the first part of the season. lots of different reasons possibly for that, but you get the feeling that Anthony is ready to reach his top levels now.
Yeah, I do, and he's a young player, so I think with young players, particularly offensive players and wingers who break onto the scene, I think we have to give some leeway to times where they might have periods where they're not as productive, or they're learning the roles or trying to improve, or defenders are understanding what they want to do to them and have to change their game a bit. I think there's that, and then there's the areas in the game where the player has to improve and wants to work to improve. And what I've seen in Anthony in this period in Australia when we're back, and it culminated with his performance against Villa behind closed doors this week, was a real intensity and energy and an understanding of the role that we want him to play in the team. I've been quite big in communicating that to him from the beginning, but particularly in this break. So I'm looking forward to see his performances. Because
goals have been at a premium recently, and you know the importance of goals to win matches, you've made a few tweaks with maybe Alex Iwobi on occasions playing further forward and Onana similarly. Do you think there's been a possible negative to that, in as much as haven't looked as solid in some of the games, noticeably not Bournemouth but against Leicester, when possession was getting given away an awful lot? Yeah, I didn't feel it so much in the Leicester game. I think Leicester are a very good team, and Tielemans scored a goal from that nobody would stop in the world or would see coming. And then when we opened up in the second half, they scored a counter-attacking goal. But I thought in a lot of parts of our performances and our opportunity to score in that game, and it was a close game. Bournemouth wasn't. It was how we do not want to play, and a lot of basics were not right in that game. And as I say, a team in our position, I think it can happen. The important thing is that you address it quickly. I haven't changed position with certain players with an idea that will help us score more goals necessarily. One of the facts about our team in the top area of the pitch is there's not a history of scoring a lot of goals. So that's where we're in development and have to get better. And sometimes you don't just click your fingers and that happens. You have to really work towards it. So everyone has to take a bit of responsibility for that one. But what we have seen of ourselves in the first half of the season, if you take out those Bournemouth games, particularly the league game, is a solidity in us, in our game, that was a big improvement on last year. And we saw lots of games where we saw improvements, and at times where we haven't had that threat at the top end of the pitch or that clinical nature. It's allowed games to maybe swing against us or become difficult. Leicester's a great example because we had the two best chances of the game. So we want to keep working on that. Some of that will be what we do here. That's the first part, as I said before. Some of that will be what can we do to bring into the club to help us in the area of the pitch. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Any further questions in the open section? Will, we'll go to you next.
Hi Frank, just wanted to ask overall about the financial situation. I think when you said in the summer, you knew it was a big thing. I think it was after the Palace game that was a sort of a big thing, the financial situation of the club. So heading into January, is it looking a lot better, and do you think it will affect recruitment in terms of maybe having to compromise on players you want, in terms of maybe structuring deals, etc., or transfer fees?
Yeah, maybe. That's a difficult question for me to answer financially. Like the numbers and economics are not really for me to sit here and go through that one. Does it affect you? Yes, we have to be sensible. And I think, some of the things before I was here, I think we look back and I think as a club we want to move in the right direction. And when people spoke about the summer window, everyone was get another this, get another that. Firstly, you've got the budget to do it. Secondly, you have to believe that player will help your team now, will help grow as an Everton player, is the right mentality as an Everton player. All these things come into the account. So we have to be smart and try and work in a smart way. I don't think that's changed from where we were in the last window. We'll do our best. What we do have is a very joined up idea, myself and Kevin and the board, of where we want to get to. We'll do our best. But what we don't want to do, and I don't want to do, is bring in players that are not going to help improve us, that are going to sort of sit in the squad and not help improve us. And then you can have different issues within the squad for that. So that's the position we're in, and that's why I always believed that we had a good summer window, but it will need hopefully a good January window and then a good summer window and a period of time to try and get us to where I think there are lots of examples of teams that are trying to transition out of a period where they feel like they've fallen down and they want to get back to where they want to be, and it very rarely happens overnight. So we have to be sensible in that fact and not try and make mistakes as we try and move up the ladder again.
Just come back to John Pickford's obviously got, I think, just over 18 months on his deal. He just finished joint top clean sheets in the World Cup. He's been around players who have been playing the Champions League, etc. He's 28 now. Do you feel that Everton can match Jordan Pickford's ambitions in terms of maybe wanting to go on to the next level, playing the Champions League, like a lot of his England teammates are doing that?
Yeah, I feel we can, because I don't think it's as straightforward to look at any individual and understand what their ambitions are. You know, Jordan is England's #1 and has secured that position relatively, which has been an amazing achievement by him, because we know how difficult that is. He's played in Everton and been a huge reason why we had a great run to the end of last season and stayed in the league. Jordan, everybody knows, was a massive part of that. Jordan feels very happy being at this club. I don't want to speak for him, but you know, that's the impression that I get for him. So I don't think it's as simple as that. I like to think that he's very happy here. We're a huge club with a huge history and big ambition, and he's a big part of that. Having been a player myself, maybe I was fortunate enough to play Champions League a lot, but when I felt comfortable at a club, I came in with a smile on my face every day, and I look forward to every game that came up, whether it be Premier League, Carabao Cup, wasn't that then, Champions League, whatever. And if Jordan feels like that and we can match each other's ambitions in terms of getting him to stay longer, I don't see that as a problem.
Thanks, Will. Okay, that's the end of the open section. We'll now move on
Thanks
to
all.
the
Cheers.
embargo section with the newspaper.
Cheers, thank you all.